Hello and welcome to another episode at Let's Talk Careers with Sarah. Today I'm going to talk about how to explain the gaps that you have on the resume. Let's start with something that is probably you are experienced and you have maybe employment gap that happened 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So that probably is not going to be mentioned on the first page of the resume, and anything that is beyond 10 years you shouldn't include it on the resume. So if you have employment gap in between those years, and let's say 7 years ago, so it's probably going to be shown on the second page, so that way it can be overlooked. However, if you have been for some reason not employed because you were taking care of baby, or you were something major happened in your life, perhaps you were taking care of your parents, grandparents, or your husband, your spouse, that is a valid reason that you have a gap, then you should be honest and explain what happened in your life that you had to be unemployed for such period of time. Then you want to not stop there. It's not an excuse for just being honest and not, being out there. You should also explain what you did during those times. I know some people usually use the time wisely while they're at home. They either learn new skills, they take courses online, or they are doing all kinds of projects, kind of like a side hustle that they're doing on the side in order for the skills not to be forgotten. So let's say you're a nurse and you took off a couple of years because of whatever happened in your life and you couldn't work, then you could say you were writing blogs about medicine, you were writing all kinds of articles regarding the field. So you want to make sure that you are passionate about what you do and you are continuously out there reading news, reading new regulations, new policies, and you know what's trending out there. So you are not dormant. Your skills are not dormant. Now, you could emphasize also that this gap that you had, it was your choice. It's not that you were fired or you were laid off, but this is something you chose to do because of whatever happened in your life. Because you were supposed to take care of your parents and you chose not to work. You were supposed to take care of your spouse and you chose not to work, although you could work, but then your spouse would be at risk. So you have to show that you have this gap not because you were fired and not because you were laid off. And now the time that people are getting fired or laid off is because of pandemic. So that will be a valid reason explaining that the company was downsizing, closing off because they could not afford, because of the pandemic, everything was closed. And this can be related so the recruiters know how it felt, because they were going through this also. Their company was closed also, and they had to work remotely, and not many had this opportunity to have their employees work remotely. They couldn't afford it. So that type of an excuse is valid. It's something that the whole world is going through, not just your company and not just you. I don't want you to emphasize at the interview for the employment gaps. You might be called for an interview and it could have been overlooked, or they do want to ask you, but don't start explaining the gap until they ask you. And if they do ask you, don't elaborate. Explain, but don't elaborate on it on and on and on and on just to impress. Don't do that. It's actually going to turn them off. The more you talk about it, it's going to show like you're giving an excuse for that. If you have an employment gap, please give me a thumbs up, because I know it's hard out there. I know it's not easy. I had an employment gap, and I want to share with you exactly what I went through. In 2009 actually, I got married. I found this job and I started working. That was my second year, and I had a baby. Once I had a baby, I knew I cannot go back to work. I knew it's not gonna work for me. I have to watch my baby, I have to take care of the baby, and I cannot trust any babysitter to really take over my responsibility. Then, when the baby turned 1, I was pregnant again with my second child. So that kind of like, I had to wait for the second child to grow up, and that was about 5 years. I had an employment gap for 5 years on my resume. I tried to get a job. The first thing they looked at it was on the gap. Now, it's not something that happened 10 years ago, 7 years ago. At that time, it happened recent, and it was shown on the first page. So I didn't know how to get back to work. It was so hard. And then I knew that there are actually jobs for moms like me who can work part-time, per diem, on call. And I was a substitute teacher. That's something that changed my life. So I worked as needed. Whenever I could go, I went. Whenever I couldn't go, I stayed home. But it showed on the resume that I'm employed as a substitute teacher. And that opened doors for me. So when I went for interviews and they asked me, you had a 5-year gap and now you're a substitute teacher. And the interview went on as regular, but I had to explain that I'm coming from a corporate world and I couldn't go back. It's because I have kids. And there was other reasons why I couldn't go back. And the company wouldn't rehire me because there are a policy. Once you are 1 month out of the job, let's say it wasn't maternity leave, it was actually short-term disability leave. So once I was on a short-term disability leave, they would not hire me back. I will have to go through the process again with the application and the interviewing and everything else. So for me, I couldn't go back to it because I just couldn't. So I was honest with my issue, what happened with my situation, and then I described that it was by choice. I didn't want to go to work. I wanted to take responsibility and take care of my baby, knowing that I will have a gap. And I didn't make a big deal out of it. I moved on to the next question. I did not emphasize why I had the gap and what happened, and it's really not concerning them. So I made it no issue. Comment below if you had also employment gap and how did you overcome it. I would love to hear it. Let me know in the comments. Now, I can give you a template. Okay, you can download the template. It's in the description below, and it will show you how to write a resume perfectly, professionally, without going through the hassle. You can download also the resume log, which will include the 500 words that you can pick and choose on your resume, and you can get the 5 templates that you might be interested to pick and choose which one you like. And also, if you would like to be interested what type of resume to write, I have here in the card explaining the format of the resume that you should have. If you still struggle with a resume, with interviews, and you need some coaching advice, career coaching advice, book with me a breakthrough session. And it's in the description below, and I will book a call with you. We will help you to get a job. Please subscribe to this channel in order for you to get updated most recent videos like this. Stick around with me more and find out more too of these videos, what type of resume to write, and also some interview tips for yourself.